Right, first of all, welcome to TEKEX's podcast number 4. We are here in Guernsey, the Digi Greenhouse, with Spike Productions producing it. Thank you very much. Quick thank you to our collaborators, PwC, Rathbones and Digital Jersey, and C5 as a host partner for our events, which we had last night. Without your collaboration and without their collaboration, we wouldn't be doing all this and on this mission to represent innovation and entrepreneurialism in the Channel Islands and soon to be Isle of Man, I hope. But we are here with Kate from KTea, who was on stage last night at TEKEX. It was TEKEX 32. It was our first event where we were streaming live between the islands of Guernsey and Jersey, and I'm a Guernseyman, but I spent 11 years in Jersey. You did great. How was it being on the TEKEX stage?
Yeah, it was good. It was quite informal though, so it was quite good.
Yeah, you did a great job, and I think what you couldn't see maybe in Jersey was everybody drinking the product, and your colleague Vivian, isn't it? Brought a load down, so everyone was enjoying it, and she made lots of connections. So hopefully we'll get to see some of those play out for the business. But you're also our first female founder on the TEKEX podcast, which is great. We had our first female founder event. It was TEKEX 30, which was really great. I was really proud of that moment. But good to have you here. So we're going to get stuck into things about the business. We're going to. I'm deeply fascinated on the health front, on the sort of psychology of business as well. So we'll probably go down some of those, pull on some of those threads as well, and hopefully they'll be interesting for you as well. Yeah. So let's start really simply. What is KTea, and we can probably go why have you started it, and maybe a bit of the origin story as well.
So we used to have a house in South Africa in the Cape Winelands. I grew up in South Africa of Lebanese parents. I was born in Lebanon. We moved out to South Africa when I was 3. So I spent most of my formative years in Johannesburg, a really horrible place, but South Africa is a wonderful country, and and then I was offered a job. I worked in architecture, and I was offered a job in London by an UK architect. And I got into computer-aided design and drafting at the very beginning, in the late 70s. So I moved to London in 1982, and I spent nearly 30 years there, so longer than the years I lived in South Africa. But I've always had that feeling of the pull of Southern Africa, of Africa, and I think it will always be with me. So we had, after I sold a business in London in 2005, I had children's day nurseries. We were one of the very first few providers, because in those days, in the early 90s, there wasn't much provision for children's nurseries for women, career women, basically. People in the city of London and everything, there was nowhere to go for them. They had to have childminders or things like. So I decided with a girlfriend to actually start up a chain of children's day nurseries, private, in all the smart areas in London. We grew the business to about 6 children's day nurseries, about 80 place nurseries, and we sold it to an American provider in 2005. They wanted to come in. They wanted to become involved. It's quite a complex thing of actually finding the right real estate with the right zoning in order to open it up. So quite complicated, took a long time. So the American company wanted to have an immediate presence. So they offered...
You've done the founder exiting again.
Then
it was Guernsey.
Then I moved to Guernsey, because my partner was living in Guernsey and we used to commute. So I moved to Guernsey.
And he's an architect as well, is that right?
He was in furniture design.
Furniture design,
yes. So he produced a lot of, he designed also very innovative, out there furniture design for offices in the City of London. So he kitted out quite a lot of the big offices in the City of London.
And it was quickly from moving to Guernsey into KTea, or was there
I then, for the first time in my life, I didn't do any. I had spare time on my hands because I'd always worked from the age of 16, non-stop, and I worked like crazy hours. And so all of a sudden, I did well. I had some money. I didn't have to work. So I did all the wonderful things that I wanted to do, learning all about share trading, right. which is crazy. And then photography, wildlife photography. I love wildlife. I'm passionate about it. So I did the Masai Mara a couple of times. I mean, had an amazing where the crossing came right through our camp, and for about 6 hours we had wildebeest sort of, belting through our camp. It was truly amazing. Anyway, you have to go out there to experience something like that. So and then always on the lookout. I did some property development, and always on the lookout for something that I was passionate about that I would start. And then we were in Cape Town, in our house, in the winelands, and we used to go to these amazing food markets because the markets, fresh food markets in Cape Town are just spectacular. And we were in there, and there was a restaurant, Luke Dale Roberts, who's probably one of the most famous chefs in Cape Town. We used to go to his restaurant quite often, and he had something called like the test kitchen, so he'd be trying things out. My partner loved wine. The wine in the Cape is amazing wine. And so I was always driving, so I could never drink. And so I was always ordering sparkling water. I hate sugared drinks. I don't like anything sweet, really. So I was always ordering sparkling water. And Luke came out and he said, I've got something for you to try. And he gave me a taste of kombucha, and that was it. It was like a eureka moment. I thought, oh my God, this is the most amazing taste.
And was it at that point this chap Luke, is it?
Luke Dale Roberts.
Yeah, so kombucha was a new thing for you, but did he also explain?
It was new for him as well.
Right.
So
what is the origin? Let's say, where was this
it's all anecdotal. So they say that it was like 2000 BC or something like that with the Chinese emperors, and I think the story goes that there was a Japanese and the Chinese emperors were quite friendly. They weren't warring, and the Japanese emperor had fallen ill, and the Chinese emperor had this magic tonic, which was a fermented tea drink. And that's how the whole thing started. So he sent this off down, and I don't know. There are loads of stories about anecdotal stories about how it started.
So you were sort of bewitched by this
taste.
Drink, right?
I mean, the taste is quite. If you try and describe the taste, it's quite difficult to say what it's like.
Okay, in the flavour profiles, where would you put it? Because obviously got sweetness in there, a bit of sour.
It's sour. It's got everything that sort of, it's got those layers of flavour. It's got, it has that fermentation, that, wine has that flavour because it's been fermented. The grapes have been fermented. So it has those layers of flavour that you can actually taste in it. It's tart, it's it has that tinge of sweetness in it. And then obviously it depends on what you put in to flavour it. It's very low in pH. The pH is quite low. Anyway, so I tasted this. I tasted it and I thought, this is amazing. I have never tasted anything like that. So then I went on a mad research, reading up what it was all about, came back to Guernsey, tried to get some here. And I remember going into Hansa and they said, oh yes, kombucha. And they dusted off this bottle that wasn't refrigerated, that was left out. And it was a bit like apple cider vinegar. It was undrinkable. So I thought, okay, this is not going to happen. So I did some research on the internet. I found a SCOBY, which is the acronym for the culture to actually do the fermentation. It's a symbiotic culture of yeast and bacteria. So that's what the SCOBY is an acronym for. And so I sent off for that. I got an organic SCOBY, and I started fermenting my own. And I thought, this is really nice. And my friends were tasting it and loving it. And then I thought, well, hang on, this is it. It's something that is safe to manufacture because it's bottled at such a low pH that it would kill anything like salmonella or anything dodgy that would get into it. It actually would kill everything in it. So I thought, well,
we're just going to interrupt. I think we got some product that's just entered.
Yes. Oh.
We didn't prepare ahead, but here we go. Perfect.
Great.
Do you want?
Yes, I'd love some.
We've got. Hand that one to you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to drink these. There it is.
So
KTea, ginger
there
hops.
It is. So
maybe
hops,
if you hints of ginger, elderberry. This is the one I had last night. It was delicious.
Yeah.
We had a load in the studio as well, Potting Shed Studio.
Yeah.
And you bought some in, so the team have been enjoying.
Yeah.
So you've got this as SCOBY.
So I got myself my SCOBY and I started fermenting, and then my friends wanted some. I was trying them on all my friends. Home brewing in my annex studio.
Cheers.
And cheers.
Is there Afrikaans for cheers or?
My Afrikaans is a bit rusty.
Okay, so the home brewing setup, how does it differ? Because one of my friends has got a home brewing beer setup. Is it?
Yeah.
How different is it?
So with the home brewing, you generally would get like a 7-liter glass bottle with a narrow neck. You'd basically brew a hot tea. You'd add sugar. And then you'd fill it up with water and then add the culture and then let it sit. Cover it with a cloth so that it could breathe, and then let it sit there for typically a week to 2 weeks. And then you would test it for the pH, also with the flavor. And then you would bottle it, and then you can second ferment it in the bottle. You can add flavorings to it and then second ferment it in the bottle. Now, I decided to go in a different way. I decided to try flavored teas. So my first initial brewing was with flavored teas. What I didn't realize was using flavored teas actually made it quite unstable.
The cultures.
So when you would bottle it, if you put it in a bottle, it would be really over fizzy because of the instability, because there was a lot of sugars, residual sugars, and it had something to do with the way it was. So most kombucha brewers would use plain teas and then flavor afterwards. So I first started the route with doing flavored teas, natural flavored teas, and trying it that way, and then I slowly moved. After a while, I realized that there was a downside to doing it that way, and then I switched to the other way. So yes, I started brewing in my annex. Then we did a trip to Portland, Oregon. So Portland is the home of kombucha. It's an amazing, American city, actually, incredibly European in feel. It's very it had fantastic restaurants, European-style restaurants. It felt like a little slice of Europe in America, basically. And all the hot and happening things happen in Portland, Oregon. They do fabulous wines as well. So I went and saw all the kombucha manufacturers around, went and met the, they call him the grandfather of kombucha. He was
what
the one.
Title!
I know.
That's something to obtain.
He was amazing. Stephen Lee, his name was.
Okay.
And he'd gone to visit a friend in Russia. This is before all these things were happening with Russia, and people were able to travel freely, and there wasn't a problem. But he went and visited a friend in Russia, and he went into his kitchen and he saw this thing bottle brewing in his kitchen, in his friend's mother's kitchen, and he said, well, what is this? And that's how it started with him. So his friend's mother introduced him to kombucha, and he came away with a SCOBY, went back to America and started brewing there, and that's how the whole kombucha movement started in America. And it's amazing, because when I went in 2018, it was a very mature market, still growing, but quite mature. Everybody knew about kombucha there. Nobody knew anything in Europe at that stage, or very few people knew in Europe. So we had supper, and we were talking about importing product over to the UK. And he said, just do it yourself, brew it. It's easy. He said, you get the feel for it and make it yourself. It doesn't travel that well, and things. So the rest is history. Then that's how I started.
You forgive my real Luddite knowledge in the space. It's just an absolute privilege for me to learn all this. But during COVID, everybody started making sourdough, right? Which starts from a bacterial culture. Is there sort of this thing where you can pass the culture on and grow it and evolve it in your own?
Well, this is the most amazing thing about kombucha, the kombucha culture. You cannot, unlike sourdough, where you can make the sourdough yourself, you can start the culture yourself. With kombucha, you can't. It has to have come handed down or come from another kombucha. So it's not something that you can recreate yourself without access to a culture. So that's the amazing thing about it. So somewhere many, many, many thousands of years ago, it's been handed down and down, and actually we still have it alive this day. So it's mind blowing if you think about it. I
want to go down that cul-de-sac more because I'm fascinated. I'm just going to get on to the sort of where we are today.
Yes.
So you've been to Portland, you started brewing at home. There's a point where you're like, right, this is my next venture.
Yes.
I'm loving this.
Yes.
I'm loving the geeky science bit of it. And then there's a moment where you're like, right, this is a business.
This is it. Shall I go for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe just what was that trigger? Like, how did you know that? Because, it's an absolutely great product. You're doing really, really well. There must have been a moment where you're kind of, there's something here.
Well, I think it was just getting all my friends to taste it, and more people saying, "Oh my God, this is amazing! You should go for it." This can you make me some? Can you make me some more? And type of thing. And I thought, well, hang on a bit. There isn't anything like this. This is it. It's found me, so I'm going to go for it. That's kind of cool.
You see so many business advice, sort of, you got to research the market. There's something about, excuse the pun, the gut feel. That means something. If you're naturally, organically evolving your passion into a space and then that gut feel, there's something here. And then obviously you've got the friends and family encouragement. But hats off to you. Really, really great. Okay, I want to pull on something again in the business realm. So, Potting Shed, we've been going nearly 20 years, and we get approached by some businesses. And I'm going to be a crude example of like somebody wanting to start their own cupcake business. And they'll come to us and they'll be like, right, I want to start my own cupcake business. I love making it. It's a passion. I'm going to ditch my professional career. I just love it so much. And I always remember advising them, and I remember the statement was like, "You sure you want to do this? Because if you're successful, which is what you're entering this entrepreneurial, then you might unlikely be making cupcakes in 5-10 years time. You're probably going to be running a business. So there's always this like push and pull between passion and your enterprise and the commercialization. So you've just wonderfully articulate that you're really passionate about this, and then it's become a business. And do you still does that conflict ever play out for you? I love kombucha, but I also love business.
No,
and they fight each other at all?
I just love making the product, and I love seeing people's faces when they enjoy it. It nurtures something in me, but I do want to wear the business hat, and I've never been frightened of starting a business that I know nothing about. I knew absolutely nothing about children's day nurseries. My background is architecture design, refurbishing buildings, refurbishing interior spaces. That's always me. But you research. So I researched there was an opening thing for the children's day nurseries. There was definitely a lack of it. And we thought, well, why not? Why don't we do it? I know we know nothing about the business, but let's do it because there's a need for it. We can swat up. It's not rocket science. So and that worked. So that actually took the fear of me trying something new, of never having done it before, but can I do it? And I've learned a huge amount. We've learned a huge amount about the drinks business. The most important thing about the drinks business, it's a numbers game. So we're geared up to produce 1 million bottles annually at the moment.
That is, let's not take that for granted in the humble real estate of planet Earth that Guernsey undertakes to be brewing. The capability to do that is magnificent.
So, Randall's cider, Roquette cider, they don't bottle on the island. So, and never haven't for a long time haven't bottled. So we've invested heavily in an automatic bottling machine that's capable of bottling 1,000 bottles an hour. And we are able to brew and produce 1 million bottles in the current space that we're in at the moment. So we're geared up for expansion. And to be brutal, at 250,000, we're break even. So we need that 1 million bottles a year to actually make a profit.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt that we can do it. If we move into the UK with the UK market, there's absolutely no doubt.
You've proved it. The success across the Channel Line is wonderful. The brand is really prevalent. And it's just one of those lovely local success stories. I hope the TEKEX community can get behind you for your next chapter and be it your fundraise or So I want to. We'll probably come back to the business at some point, and maybe the fundraise piece as well later. But I want to talk about this. I'm 44. We sort of went out and drunk alcohol. As you sort of mature. I'm interested in this like seismic shift in. I'm going to be a bit crude, but let's say more hedonistic endeavors in your youth and 20s into, life hacking and longevity, and that sort of seems to be creeping. I'm 44 now, so my mindset is like, right, I want to live as long as I can for my son. That's the sort of the mindset. So you look at these life hack things, and then you sort of, which is great, right? In one paradigm, that is wonderful. We're shifting, and of course, we've got to let hair down. We're not being a total, whatever. But great, we're starting to sort of fill our bodies with health hacks and products. Now you combine that with the social media universe and influencer and universe. You're seeing this sort of overwhelming, almost like religious relationship with people and the health thing that they're most passionate about, and particularly if we can go into sort of PT and workouts and whatnot, but if we think about what you're putting inside your body, the more health products, you sort of get people like foie gras-ing their AG1 algae, and people they almost get this sort of maniacal religious relationship. It's wonderful because it's so believable, and you're like, and even your friends are sort of, you have to try this, and if there's anything I've sort of realized, and this is less of a question, more of a dialogue, I hope, is each of us are so unique. Like I don't know, let's talk about gut bacteria in our makeup. We're sort of messing them up with processed foods, and then we're trying to correct them, but we're all so nuanced. I'd love to sort of take that idea and then talk about the ubiquitous positive input of the live cultures that you're putting. Less of a question, more of a topic to break down.
Well,
maybe.
I'm passionate about healthy eating. I just think it's crazy that people are more worried about what petrol they put in their cars and they just don't worry about what they they put down their throats. And it's like you've got one body for your whole life. That's it. You don't get an opportunity to change it for another one. And nobody really cares. And I read every label before I buy something, because I'm not going to eat something that I either is not good for me or I don't know anything about it. There's so much information available nowadays. I just think people bury their heads in the sand. They don't want to find out what's in food. All these food manufacturers put all these things in these ultra-processed foods that makes you want to crave more and more of it, and it becomes addictive, and you can't stop buying it and eating it, which I think is mad. I mean, it's completely mad.
Do you think we're evolving into breaking that system down a bit? You know,
I hope so.
In the US, whether it's tokenistic, political, populist narrative or not, at least the conversation is out there. At least I think people are coming a bit more aware and a bit more conscious of some of the, poisonous ingredients.
But there's no excuse anymore. You can't bury your head in the sand. There's so much information out there. I mean, even if I don't understand something I read on a label, I'll Google it and then look at it and think, put it back on the shelf, saying, no, I'm not going to be eating that.
But maybe a bit of a provocative question. But if I caveat as it being a bit provocative, KTea is an amazing product. It's a premium product. The push and pull of this complex narrative of health and nutrition is that, even in the Channel Islands we have food bank, families that can't avoid food. Yeah. It appears that the best stuff for us is the most expensive, making this sort of equitable access to the best things to put inside us. I mean, it's not your problem to solve.
No, it isn't. I understand that, but I actually think buying food in packets, ready-made, prepared, is a lot more expensive than just buying vegetables, growing your own vegetables. I mean, there's so many ways around it. I will never eat a prepared meal. I mean, as in buy one and heat it up. I just won't do it. I cook everything from scratch. Even it's just having a yogurt and a slice of sourdough toast or whatever it is, that I'd rather have that than eat a pre-prepared or manufactured or highly processed food. So I can understand, I think, but a lot of it has got to do about education. It's educating, and I just think that the food companies, it's unforgivable what they're doing, because I heard an interview with the head of Nestlé's, the CEO of Nestlé's, and he admitted that 75% of the stuff that they produce is detrimental to your health, and that they were going to try and do something about it. I mean, the man who's making them is saying, I'm killing everybody.
It's the founder of Netflix was once asked, who's your biggest competitor? And he answered, sleep. Okay, I mean, let's contextualize it as well. Like, I took a recent holiday to Mallorca, incredibly privileged. I was fascinated by that island. It's bigger footprint than Channel Islands, doesn't have our industries that we have here that give us this wonderful, great economic status and lifestyle. And I looked around and, we were staying in one of the hotels we were staying in, sort of the group tourist buffet thing. And I was like, oh, wow, this is overwhelming. All the food was magnificent. And then it suddenly dawned on me, everything had been produced on Mallorca. So even the cakes were lighter. They didn't make me feel, uncomfortable in the experience of eating it afterwards, like perhaps it would in the Channel Islands. It suddenly dawned on me, with such a successful tourist industry and the climate they could grow in everything and produce everything, what a great system. And there's different challenges here in the Channel Islands for sure, but
we should be growing more of our own food and
and there's India and Taylor in Jersey who are really campaigning for a heightened awareness in farming and soil health. And we've had my cousin Jamie with the soil farm.
And I think our governments, the people there should be helping them. They should be encouraging people to go into farming, to producing our own food. I mean, it's so important. It really is. And the biggest issue as well is not using chemicals. People have got to stop. I mean, there are a lot of farmers on the island who use terrible chemicals. Everything goes into the water table. It's just not, you know. It shouldn't happen.
I'm a Luddite in this space. I'm loving learning, and you know, it's sometimes we sort of seek the target of the finger to point at. You know, is it government? Is it farmers? And you know, I think what I hope part of this podcast is to kind of expose some narratives in a healthy way. There's no finger pointing. It's like, hey man, we can change stuff if we just open the conversation a bit wider. Yeah. And you know, and again, tip of the cap for achieving something in a very organic business manner to success. You know, you've proved it can be done.
This drink is 100% natural. There is nothing in it that we add, that there's no preservatives, no additives. From start to finish, it's not. We haven't registered as organic, but it's all organic, and that's what I love about it. It's just a completely natural production. We don't carbonate. Everything is as it should be, and for me, that actually ticks all the boxes of why I'm doing it. So it's a really important part of what we're doing. And all the botanicals that we use all have a purpose. They're all good for you in some way, shape or form. I'm not saying they're going to cure you of any illnesses. I would never want to say that. But it's a natural energizer. It's better than having caffeine. It's low in sugar. I mean, sugar is one of the biggest killers on the planet, sugar.
Let's get into a bit of the science and wellness of it. You know, what do you feel? You fall into novel foods, or
I don't know.
or just retail product pack. So loads of statements again, rather than a question. I guess you made this interesting comparison with alcohol to kombucha. In your instance, how you learned about it, interested in that because it's sort of got that fermented alcohol.
It absolutely has that. You know, it's you know. If you go off alcohol and you want something that isn't a soft drink, this actually fills that gap because it feels like, because of the fermentation process, it feels like you're drinking something that isn't a soft drink. But actually it doesn't. It has trace amounts of alcohol, but you get trace amounts of alcohol in orange juice. You get it in, if you leave a cut orange or a cut fruit out for an hour, you'll probably get as much alcohol in that.
And I imagine, given its flavour or its sort of taste experience, it's got a little echo of an alcohol. If you're sat drinking it with friends who are drinking, I bet there's a context.
Yes.
I mean, is there actually a context high? You know, a context experience of others drinking around you might sort of almost have that placebo.
It does. It absolutely does. I mean, I don't drink alcohol anymore. So since I started producing this drink. I don't drink alcohol anymore. So, and because alcohol fries your brains, it does.
Let's really talk about the neuro. Are there any studies around the neurological impacts
of kombucha? Well, they say a good gut microbiome means, you know, a really good brain health. So it's the same sort of thing. So what happens down here affects what happens in your brain. So there have been a lot of studies. I don't know if you've heard of Tim Spector, who's headed up this app called Zoe. So he started it lockdown. So he's a professor of epidemiology. In one of the London universities, and he was fascinated as to why some people really suffered from the effects of COVID and other people didn't. So he started up this app, and he was doing, because he thought it was all about what people were eating. And it's been proven. you would send your stool samples into them. They'd do testing. Then they'd provide you with a blood sugar monitor. And then you would write down exactly what you're eating, and they would actually work it all out. And so people's blood sugar spikes at different rates with different things that they eat. So every single body has a different reaction to sugar. So if I ate, I don't know, I haven't gone onto it yet because it's open to mostly UK people. It isn't open to the Channel Islanders. But if you eat a biscuit with lots of sugar in it, if you ate it and I ate it, it would have a different effect on both of us. Yeah. So everybody's body is different and they have different ways. But anyway, this Zoe app, everybody swears by it. So they get to learn what is good for them, what they can actually digest, which affects them, which doesn't affect them, foods. And they quite happily get into a diet that suits their particular body. I mean, it's an amazing thing. You should read about it. And he is passionate about healthy foods. And he's always saying, kombucha, fermented foods, you've got to have them in your diet. Cut out the sugar. Cut out all the processed foods. I mean, it's just just cut out the processed foods. Eat lots of greens. Eat the rainbow. 25 colors a day if you can. Every little herb is counted as one of those 25 or 30. So, and I suppose my background is Lebanese, Greek, Mediterranean, and my mother used to be a fantastic cook. And I grew up helping her in the kitchen. And so food has always been, one of the most, it's one of the things I love most in the world, eating, having people over for dinner, cooking for them and enjoying sharing meals. And so it's a passion. And I think that food, whatever you eat, does affect your brain. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, there's loads of things to pick up on there. There's a business we're working with really closely in Jersey, all around neurological innovation and health. And one of the businesses spun out of the incubator is mushrooms, and you just need to look at the R&D since sort of 2000 around that. In the psychoactive and the non-psychoactive. So if we take the sort of bioactive, he's producing lion's mane lollipops, for instance, where he's extracting the active compound in the mushroom, getting rid of the organic matter, putting that into lollipops. So it's far more sort of potent, I guess, in its impact. And
hopefully his lollipop doesn't have lots of sugar in it.
No, well, he's really conscious about that as well.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't want to sort of be this offsetting health moment.
Yeah.
But in those learnings and working with him, it's forced me down some really fascinating literature around neurochemistry, neurobiology, and even to the point of there's an amazing book from I'll get the author at the end. We'll put it on the Phantoms of the Brain, looking at pain and neurology, and we talk about gut and that gut feeling, and now there's just so much neural evidence showing out that there's sort of a stronger conscious link at a cellular level throughout our body. And kombucha is just a wonderful example of sort of putting a living creature, a living entity into
microbes,
your gut.
Living microbes into your gut.
I mean, if you sort of just even take the time to conceive that idea, it's wonderful. And so,
So I don't know if, I think I've said this before, but we collaborate with the soil farm, and we have our scobies, our cultures are so strong. It's absolutely amazing that we can't keep them all. So a lot of them go back into the soil. So the soil farm make their own fantastic compost. They use all our spent tea leaves, all our spent botanicals, all our excess scobies all go back into the earth. So, and to help grow their wonderful vegetables. So, you know,
shout
it's
out
kind
to the
of
soil farm.
Shout out, absolutely.
And I think my cousin Jamie, Jamie Prow, and Jock, is it?
Jock, yes, Jock Petit, yes.
Yeah, well, big shout out to that movement.
Absolutely. They're doing
Guernsey.
wonderful things, and they've just opened up a farm shop adjacent to the KTea brewery, which is fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. I
know you've had a lot of farm shops, but Guernsey hasn't had anything until now, so it's brilliant.
Yeah. Let's get into just a quick touch on that fermented thing, and I guess it sort of speaks to sort of the ancient history of kombucha specifically. But do you feel like fermentation is quite an old
it's a preservation
nutritional concept? I feel like there's a bit of a movement back there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it's going back to real foods, to actually producing real things that we seem to have moved away from in this sort of, you know, takeaway, instant food, packaged food culture. So it is like going back to basics again, which is fantastic. It's just rediscovering what our great grandfathers and mothers were doing a long time ago, pre having fridges. You know, they couldn't keep things fresh because they didn't have fridges, so they preserved things. So it's an amazing thing, really.
Amazing. Let's get to business.
Okay.
I think you speak so wonderfully about your passion of it all. I could sit here and talk for hours, but TEKEX has got that entrepreneurial edge, innovation edge.
Yeah.
So your fundraising, you spoke about that last night. Let's talk about why you're raising.
Okay.
Obviously, you want to scale into the UK. We've kind of heard that. We touched upon before we started about some of the challenges of proximity. Yeah. Sorry, just being a phone call from one of my business partners. Let's talk about the fundraise, why you're doing it, and some of the challenges and staying true to some of the
So really importantly, we quickly realized that actually a saturated market across the Channel Islands would only get us to a break-even point because of the investment in the bottling machine, in the premises and the people. And so obviously the UK market was the one to go for. And we've had so many visitors come to the islands, taste our wonderful KTea, because it's not done, the kombucha, the commercial kombuchas, it's all gone very commercial. So what I explained to somebody last night who was quizzing me was that in 2018, 2020, when I first started doing it, we'd go to, there was in Berlin, they'd do a kombucha's brewers conference, an annual brewers conference. And when I went in 2018, 2019, there were about 180 brewers there coming all over Europe, Russia, the Far East, Japan, so everybody except the American, because the American market is a separate market. And everybody was brewing it traditionally, like we're brewing it now. And the last one I went to was last year, 2024. We went there. Everybody was there, 190 odd brewers. 4 of us were the only ones brewing it in a traditional manner.
Wow.
So everybody had gone commercial. So they had got funding, they got VCs, they had been bought up by other companies, and they were told that they had to become more efficient. They couldn't do it that way. There's a certain, there's a company called Manova. They produce a very strong kombucha culture starter liquid in a laboratory. They mess around, I think, with the yeast, the different yeasts and bacteria, and they make a shelf-stable product so that it can't second ferment on its own. It's less volatile. They can produce it in incredible quantities. And what they do is anybody who's starting a kombucha company will buy an IBC, which is one of these big plastic 1,000-liter canisters of the product. They basically will put, maybe I go back to start how kombucha is made. So kombucha, you always have to have a starter liquid. So probably, I think it's a 10% has to be starter liquid. You then make, brew a strong tea, and then you add water to it and the sugar for the recipe, mix it all up, add the culture to it at the top, and it kind of floats at the top in a tank. You cover it with the thing, and then you leave it for 2-3 weeks until it ferments. You test it, pull it out, flavor it, bottle it, and then second ferment in the bottle. So that was the standard way of doing it, the traditional way of brewing it. Now, what kombucha companies are doing are they're buying this very strong starter liquid that's commercially available. They will brew a tea overnight, add sugars, purees, whatever they want for the taste. These wonderful natural flavorings, which are completely unnatural. You do a drop will flavor a 500-liter tank. Now, tell me how natural can that be? It's just not possible. And then they will carbonate, because there's nothing in it that will make it second ferment on its own. They will carbonate it and then bottle carbonate it, and then that's it. Out it goes. So it's at most a 3-day process. Ours will be 2 weeks of fermentation, a week of flavorings with dry botanicals. It will then be bottled. It then spends another 3 to 4 weeks second fermenting, and then we put it on the shelves. So that's why it is not a cheap product, because it takes a good 2 months to produce.
It's craft.
It's craft.
Real
exactly.
Craft. Yeah. And by all accounts, potency is key, and purity of the product is. So in order to people have been investing in opening up breweries and things like that, and they want to make money quickly. So they've been told they've got to use a strong starter. They flavor with fruit purees, and other flavorings, and then it's a 3-day process out on the shelves. You cannot get a naturally fermented kombucha in a can. So if you see kombucha in a can, it's not the real deal. Right. If you don't see anything floating inside it, it's not the real deal. It's one of these instant kombuchas, basically. Yeah, bitty. You want things floating around, because that actually proves that it's a natural ferment. Yeah. And so when you get investment, where a lot of these companies have had investment, they've just changed their processes in order to make that quick buck, to actually make to make the money for the investors. So so what we're looking for is a partner who actually truly believes in the product that we're making. It's a premium product. It will always be a premium product. But the main reason that we're looking for investment is that we want to move to the different formats. So we've done some numbers, looked at the numbers, and basically if you make a bottle at 750 ml, it takes just as long to make a 750 ml than it is to make a 330 ml bottle. You sell the 330 ml bottle for £3 a bottle. You sell the big bottle for £15 a bottle. So, and you have to make less of them. So it makes business sense to actually move to the bigger 750 ml format. And so that's one of the reasons we're looking for investment. Is to set up a 750 ml bottling line with a champagne. So we really want to make it a very upmarket product. So it will have a champagne cork in it, and so that it will become a celebratory thing, a drink. And so the investment will go into the bottling line for that.
and the marketing and getting our product out into the UK.
Amazing story. We will do everything we can with TEKEX and the community to be it support the fundraise, just get behind you. And, I think Channel Islands origin entrepreneurs are just part of the community's remit to get behind. And I hope once we get this out and after last night's event, we that boosts you on your journey. I always like to one quick open-ended question, then there's going to be a bit of a quick fire bit just to conclude it. All founders have moments of self-doubt. What's the thing when that happens for you? What picks you out of it?
I think it's you just don't go into something in order to fail. So I've gone into this to succeed. And that's what keeps me going.
Awesome. Yeah. And look, you've exited, the journey. You can apply that ubiquitous business acumen.
It's a bit like having a baby, I think. I've never had children, but I think I can only liken it to that. You forget in the success of having sold and built a business and moved on, and then you want to do it again. I think you just forget about what it takes, and then you have to go through the whole angst again, going through it. But
there is as a father of a 4-year-old and 20 years running potting shed and doing it. There's so many parallels between dadding and being a founder, and it sounds really contrived, but they really do exist. Look, this is amazing. We're going to do quick fire. Thing you're most proud of in KT?
100% natural.
Cool. And your awesome team, by the way.
Yes.
Saw them all.
And my awesome team.
I saw them all on the slides last night.
Yes. I love it that we're all female. It actually does add something to it.
For sure. Best bit of feedback?
From the just anything.
Anyone that's taken a sip and just.
It makes me feel good.
Perfect. Biggest health myth that bugs you?
I don't know. That is a really hard one.
There's too many.
Too many.
We can come back to that. We'll answer it when it goes out on LinkedIn.
I'll remember.
One thing you wish everyone knew about their gut that they probably don't know?
It's fixable if they tried.
Yes. Nice. And finally, do you podcast? Do you listen to podcasts?
Yes, I do.
Most recommended one to the listeners?
Oh, who's the guy on... I just had a brain fog about... Who's the guy who does... I've forgotten his name. Yeah, no, I can't remember.
Is it one of the big ones?
Yeah.
Stephen Bartlett?
Yes, Stephen Bartlett.
Stephen, don't they? He's coming to Jersey, actually.
Is he really?
He's speaking at an event.
Well,
I should try and snag him.
I love what he does. He's so sympathetic to women. I think he's got a real empathy to women and going through menopause and things like that. I mean, it's very difficult, and men do too. You know, they go through menopause, so it's something you've got to look forward to, and all of you have got to look forward to.
What?
But nobody admits it. I know. It's, menopause is something that happens to men and women. And Stephen Bartlett is really behind that. You should listen to his podcast.
That's for me, the best thing about podcasts on a whole is the long form. It's hard not, everyone banging on about you need to be authentic. It's like, well, in an hour's chat, how level are you going? It's quite difficult to hide that parasocial. So, look, it's been an absolute awesome whirlwind and pleasure to learn. There's way more I want to learn, and I'm sure
there's a lot I can tell you.
The viewers will want to as well. So please reach out to Kate. And thanks for last night. You did a great job.
Pleasure. Thank you.
We're going to put your fundraising to Summit, who we're working with, so we can see all the fundraise stuff
great.
there.
Yeah.
So Lou will help you on that.
Yeah.
Bunch of thank yous, Spike for producing this and the team there. Digi Greenhouse for hosting us. It's great to be here in Guernsey podcasting. Louis, great work for your inaugural comparing last night. Thanks to again to our collaborators, PwC, Rathbones Digital Jersey, signing off podcast number 4. Thank you, Kate.
Pleasure.